Well, great. Sounds like we can get started. Good evening. I'm Tom Krizmanic, architect, studio director, and principal at Gensler. Welcome to our table, this round table. The diagram that I drew had a big table, but we've got a coffee table. That's fine. This is sponsored by Be Original Americas. And Be Original Americas was founded 12 years ago with 10 brave companies whose products were often copied. We know what that means. Today there are over 180 member firms. I checked it out, and that is a 30% year-over-year return. So if Be Original Americas was a stock, we should have bought it. Today, these member firms include architect and designers, manufacturers, retailers, and e-tailers, industrial designers, and media sponsors. Be Original Americas develops CEU courses, has active mentor workshop and fellowship programs for students, works with ICFF Wanted Design and with schools such as Pratt, Cranbrook, SCAD, and NYSID. Works with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, that sounds scary. Produces newsletters, including one every other month with our intellectual property attorney. This is all toward the goal to educate and inform professionals and individuals on the value of original design and the damage copies do to our environment, economy, and ethics. At Gensler, we are providing an opportunity for our designers to understand the issue better by holding in several of our North American offices, Gensler Be Original co-hosted fireside chats focusing on the value of original design. We have many originals here today. Did you like that segue? And I would like to introduce them from my left. You can applaud after each introduction and give us some energy up here. Okay. The first is Mavis Wiggins. Mavis Wiggins, FIIDA, is Managing Executive and Global Creative Director at TPG Architecture. Mavis has a, no, she am not done. I'll give you the thumbs up when I'm done, okay? We didn't have any dress rehearsals. Mavis has a multifaceted workplace portfolio and is an advocate for encouraging diversity within the A&D community. Her recognition and awards are enviable. Can you see what I'm going to read? Having been to Interior Design Magazine Best Interior Designer in Corporate Interiors in 2020, elevated to the IIDA College of Fellows in 2021, and in 2022 was inducted to the Interior Design Hall of Fame. These are the shortened versions, okay?
Shoot, I've got to go after that.
Coleman Gutshall. Coleman is the Vice President of Strategic Operations for leading furniture brand Bernhardt Design. He also serves as the current president of Be Original Americas. Coleman is from Virginia, and while he wanted to be an architect, very noble profession, he received an MBA studying design and business from UVA. He's a regular speaker on originality and the business of design. Casey Baxter is Vice President, General Manager for HBF and HBF Textiles. Casey has 19 years of sales and leadership experience in the commercial furniture industry, focusing on design-oriented brands. A consummate connector, she is recognized for her ability to create lasting, meaningful relationships with designers, dealers, and clients, like me. Omar Nobil. Omar joined Miller Knoll in October 2022 as Vice President Creative Director for Design Within Reach, where he leads product design, creative marketing efforts, and visual merchandising. Omar came to this industry through fashion, having worked with Banana Republic, where he created collaboration with multiple celebrities, can't wait to hear about that, and then in 2021 started his own multidiscipline design studio covering architecture, apparel, and custom automotive design for fully private, which I assume means very confidential, real estate developments. And this is where his team merges state-of-the-art technology with design. Welcome, Omar. Helene Oberman. Helene is the Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine. Hi, Helene. Rising to that position over 20 years after having been hired as the assistant to the editor-in-chief. Her natural talent for wrangling photographers, writers, and designers extends to her being on the IIDA Leaders Breakfast Event Committee and the Advisory Board Steering Committee for the Fashion Institute of Technology Interior Design Department. Welcome. Kyra Harnett. Kyra Harnett is the founder of 22, a manufacturer of digitally printed wallpaper and textile collections and bespoke custom projects, which evolved from starting in 2001 simply, I say simply, designing and marketing wallpapers and textiles. 22 has a women-led team of over 50 people who run a broad suite of the latest digital technology, executing an array of inventive and complex site-specific installations which focus on customer experience and sustainability. Whew, that is a mouthful. Welcome, Kyra. And John Edelman. John is the CEO and president of Heller, an iconic furnishings brand, which he purchased in May of 2022. Previously owning and leading Design Within Reach from 2010, where he revitalized the brand and sold it to Herman Miller in 2014. He honed his Master of the Universe skills at Edelman Leather, where during his 14 years there, 9 of which were CEO and president, through his leadership, it would define a place that was defined by family principles of authenticity and doing well by doing good. John Edelman, welcome. Okay, tonight our topic is challenges, wins, and insights, but we want to know who we have in the room. So we want you to raise your hand as I ask you these questions and raise them high so we can see. Any students that are in school now?
Oh, wow.
Great. Any designers who own their own firm? Okay. Designers who work at firms of 25 people and less? You rate us at high, you don't have to be shy. We want to know. Designers who work at a firm of 25 or more? Okay. And anybody in design as a second career? There? Okay. And did anyone raise their hand more than once? Okay. I knew it was possible from this, so that's great. We'll begin our roundtable, and I wanted to let you know that we're modeling this on a program called the Actors Studio with James Lipton. So it's a bit out of the ordinary. You've probably heard many of these folks recite their CVs and know their accomplishments, but we're going to get to know them in a little bit of different way. And there is going to be time for questions the last 10 or 15 minutes or so. So I'd like to get started with Mavis right here to my left. How do you think your trajectory would look if you came into the workforce today?
Very different. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
It would look very different because the workforce today is very different. And I was one of the early graduates. When I came to New York from Berkeley, California, I was 18. And I wanted to see another side of life and understand, New York was where it's at. And I wanted to, I attended Pratt Institute, and it was a very, different sort of place, design at that time. And you have to remember this was pre-AIDS, and it was just a different world, obviously. I remember coming to Pratt, I was really surprised that my father even let me go there because so far away. But he told me later he thought I was just going to go for a little while for college and then come back home. So I broke his heart. But it was also during a time when Pratt is in Clinton Hill in Brooklyn. At the time it was Bed-Stuy. So it was, there were a lot of kind of warnings about, just be careful and things like that. I never felt that when I was there because I always thought the community was just so beautiful and the architecture was so beautiful and people that owned those homes had jobs and worked and all of that. So I never felt threatened there. But it was also a time where there were a lot of drugs in New York City, period. everywhere. Like, I remember times when people said they would never go to Madison Square Park, Bryant Park. You know, these places were off limits. And so it was just a different time. Now I think there's a bit more, I won't say innocence, but a different approach to how things are seen. The younger people that are just starting out in the workforce have a completely different perspective than I did. And also, I have to say, the teaching is different. You know, it's much more expansive, it's much more kind of business oriented. Like, for me, it was just draw beautiful designs. Now it seems like there's more of an emphasis on what happens after that, like what happens when you get out into the world and you have to know something about the business of design. And I'm happy to see that's evolved to that, because that's really important to the education of students and how they approach life, you know, in a way. So anyway, it was very different. It would be very different today for me.
Yeah, and I think each one of us is the product of the context that we grow up in.
Right.
And so that context led you to be the way you are, and people today are growing up in a different kind of context, and that'll affect the work that they do.
Exactly.
All right, let's turn it to Kyra. Is there a moment in your career that was a pivot point for you?
I hate to be long-winded, but there are two. I would say there's two moments.
Well, I'm crossing off your second question.
Okay, great. My husband and I founded our business 21 years ago, and we decided that we wanted to pivot from being multidisciplinary designers to product designers, and launched a wallpaper collection in 2003 at ICFF. And the manufacturing partner that we found thought we were crazy because wallpaper was not in fashion at that time, but we really believed that it was going to come back and that it would be a great way to get noticed, that perhaps we would get hired to create textiles or rugs or something that people actually purchased. But in fact, it was very warmly received by interior design, by editors and designers. And that was really this pivot for us to become the wallpaper people. And then 12 years later, we pivoted to become the manufacturing people and a partner in the process for other designers, and really serving the design community in a way that we wished our manufacturing partners had for those 10 years where we were designing and marketing our own products. So there were really there have been thus far two major chapters of our career as designers and now manufacturing partners, and there were very clear pivot points for each.
I'd like to go to another question. What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck, 100%. And I use it far too often.
Well, I don't have a follow-up question for that.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to Casey, okay? When we begin our careers, we think about a dream job. Did you have a dream job?
So when I was in high school, we would get asked this a lot, and I remember telling everyone, I just want to find a job where I can get paid to talk. So when I was in undergrad at University of Michigan, I did not declare a major until I was a senior because I really couldn't figure it out. But I looked at what I enjoyed studying, and at that time it was literature, so I just decided to declare as an English major. But I was always looking to be in probably sales or consulting and have the opportunity to be paid to talk.
Well, English has a lot to do with talking, so do you think that like, your vocabulary, the way that you put words together, it influenced you?
Yeah, I think a well-read person is a well-spoken person generally, and it also helps formulate arguments, so that's really constructive. But yeah, I ended up in an industry that I really love, but it was to do something that was really simple and elementary to me.
Great. Okay, now on to Coleman. Is there a profession other than your own that you would like to attempt, and why?
You already answered that in the introduction, but I'll throw another one in there too. So I always wished I could be an architect. I was a good banker's son and got business degrees throughout my training, but from before I can remember, I was drawing houses, floor plans, also oddly designing mazes, which I kind of see the same way as sort of this sort of path that you're taking. And with architecture, I felt like it was interesting because you could sort of create this unfolding experience as you navigate a space. And being from Virginia, I was sort of awash in Jeffersonian classicism. Went to, as you said, University of Virginia for graduate school, also Washington and Lee for undergraduate, both known for their classical architecture on their campuses. The other thing that I always wished that this came a little bit later, but was to be a contemporary art gallerist. And I've also had a passion for art, and I liked the idea of, on the contemporary end, being able to work with artists of today and get to know them and develop a relationship. So it was beyond just collecting and studying. It was knowing people and understanding them and getting to have those relationships. And it ended up, those two things coming together worked pretty well for Bernhardt Design, because it was furniture, which was big business in an architecturally sort of tangent industry, but also we specifically work with name designers that design our products on a specific basis, and so it was kind of like getting to be a gallerist in that way, where you were working with designers, helping to build their careers, working collaboratively on sort of the creative output.
And it seems to me that, moving from buildings to furniture, furniture has to stand up on its own. It has to be figured out how to be made. Of course, it's reproduced many more times than buildings are, but it also has to have a use. So they're like little buildings, and then the marketing of it almost feels, which I know you're in charge of, it feels like that has to do with galleries as well. Like, how do you take something and say, this is how I'm going to present it to the world, and have it be relevant of that time?
Absolutely. It's a little bit different in art, because art, you just have to sell one piece, and it can exist for its own sake rather than, as you said, to serve a purpose. But very much it's focused on, we're at least focused on romancing the object, telling the story of the design, and really promoting it through that. And for the past 30 years or so, the company's been successful in that approach.
Great. So now to Omar. You've been in both fashion and design. What's the best of each, and what's the worst of each?
Wow, good question.
We only have.
I'll be, I think that I've got lots of positive things to say about both. I'd say for fashion, what I really appreciate now, having left it, is there is a sort of fearlessness with fashion and fashion designers in their approach, and kind of staring down the barrel of the gun at what's new out there and what's happening, and shifts in people's values, and being really sort of aware of that. I think the negative, the most challenging side of fashion is the demand for, just an incessant demand for new product. And it's very tireless, and it doesn't lead to people consistently delivering their best work. So that, I think, there's two, sort of a yin and yang there. The design industry, I've been struck by many really positive things about it. I would say, from the point of view of the designers I work with, I do think there's a very sort of earnest sense of commitment to serving society, and a greater, a real sort of a greater breadth of people that people want to serve, and that these products are here to, like the name of Be Originals, to be original design, and to be committed to serving life today. And I think that it's less tribal than fashion. It's sort of less, it's more pulled apart from the ego of the individual. And I found that very sort of moving and striking, and as I work with so many incredible designers in this industry. I think it's hard to, one of the challenges is it definitely is it's hard and slow to make progress and make changes. Partly just the complexity of the product. You're working with very different materiality and different skills. And I also do think the ability to make pivots and changes, people are much more resistant, I would say, than they are in fashion. Again, I think a bit of your strength is your weakness. But there is more of a resistance for change. And that the thoughtfulness and ponderous nature is great, but it can also kind of prohibit that kind of fearlessness, I would say, at times.
Both of those are, known for having very creative people. Are
Yeah.
they creative in a different way, or do they have the same underlying energy, self-doubt, motivation, whatever they're doing?
I think there's massive similarities in all designers from these different disciplines. I think there's a lot of similarities in the process of inspiration and development of product, especially when you are creating, kind of in fashion, when you're creating your core businesses, the things that really keep the lights on. It's pretty academic. You really understand what's out there. You're really looking at every measurement. This has got to fit, the tens of thousands or millions of body types. So there is a very academic and thoughtful sort of process with that. I think that the sense of that sensibility is where the two sort of overlap. And then I would say that there is a very interesting similarity I find with both product development in fashion and in furniture, where designers tend to be control freaks. That's why they sort of go into design and they see a lot of fault and they're very critical of objects that are in front of them. And they want to correct that and they want to make that better. And there is this moment in fashion where you've designed, you've concepted, you've designed, you've sketched, you've worked on this thing with your technical designer. When the model comes out into the fitting room, you relinquish sort of all control at that point. It now belongs to the model. And if they come out with a smile on their face, you've done a good job. If they come out with a frown and she's giving you a lesson in tailoring, then you sort of lose that control, and it's a very beautiful moment. And I see the same thing with furniture, where when a great sample comes in, the team, the product developers, the merchants, the way they interact with that product, the designers sort of lost control, like it's no longer theirs. And I find that's a really interesting parallel.
That's a great observation about like people knowing when they're in the presence of something that's got some energy and take versus trying to shave this off or that. So
Yeah.
But super thoughtful. Helene, so how does being from California relate to who you are today?
Well, first a shout out to Mavis, my other Californian. Well, anyone that knows me probably would know that I would never admit to being Californian.
The way you say that sounds very California.
Yeah. I can't take this away. I was born with it. At least it's a natural valley.
I love it.
Yeah. I did everything in my power to leave California. So I went to high school, and there was like 300 people in my graduating class, and I was one of 3 people to even go to, college out of state, and really wanted to come to New York, maybe similar to Mavis too, where it was like, New York's New York, and it's a scary place, and so I actually ended up going to school in Philadelphia, which I have to admit, I still call it my favorite starter city. Like, I never knew how to take public transportation. Like, I never lived in a really urban city before, and so actually navigating Philadelphia was an amazing experience that by the time I got here, and I got here in 2000, so I've been here now almost 25 years now in New York, more of my life on the East Coast than the West Coast, that I was like, I consider myself a New Yorker or an East Coaster, not a Californian, despite the voice.
I love your analogy of the starter city. For me, grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, if you can hear it in my voice, but I spent some time getting rid of that accent. But I went to Washington, D.C., which I thought was a big city. And I then found my way to New York, and now when I go back to Washington, it's kind of like Epcot Center. It's like just there, you know, and that idea of transitioning up really helped me. I don't know how I could have come as an 18-year-old to New York. Yeah, I probably would have gone back, and my mother would have been, yeah, you're fearless. But do you feel like that changes? Because I feel like we need to be fearless every day now.
Yeah, it changes.
It changes? Okay. John, we're out of time. I told you I'd get you. You got me. You've had an incredible profession in this business. Is there ever a time that you're thinking, hey, I wish I would have done something else?
Well, in all honesty, never where I wish I had done something else.
Yeah.
Have I had a couple of businesses that I fantasized about doing?
Yeah.
Yes. So I'll just tell two quick ones. After Edelman Leather, there was a few minutes of freedom, and my business partner and I, John McPhee, we decided to go into the private jet luxury interior business and set up a studio, the only luxury studio in an urban area, and have it in Manhattan, on 29th Street, and build out tubes so you can get the feel of it, do virtual reality so you can see all the interior pieces that they changed and worked in our library. There's only like 6 or 7 different ones you can even change. And it didn't exist at the time. I thought it was a cool business. We ended up selling private airplanes later and be immersed in that world. And our partner at the last minute backed out, who was the designer. At the same time, we heard about this company called Design Within Reach we could buy, and Alicia Keys bought our space, made a recording studio. So that ended quickly, but we were almost in the private jet business. It would have been kind of cool. And then I liked the spirits business, and we did a failed vodka during COVID. We actually did that one, but I learned. And I do have a fantasy about doing a bourbon. You know, all bourbon is similar. It's 4 years aged in a dry, charred oak barrel. You can only use 3 ingredients, and it's the mix of 3 ingredients that changes everything. And it's aged. So my concept was, I love a lot of different things. So in my mind, there's only 2 things in the world that require absolute and total precision: the fine tuning of a luxury watch and the aging of a fine bourbon. Watchmaker bourbon.
Oh, nice. Are you looking for investors?
So I want to do watchmaker bourbon, and I've told Cleaner about this. And I had the box design, it'll double at the end to hold 6 watches. The base would be the Jubilee bracelet. The lid would be pushers from iconic watches from the past. So at some point, when I'm not lugging a couch or a chair or a bag of leather up a flight of stairs to see one of you people, we'll do a bourbon.
Great. I look forward to that. Now, a follow-up question for you. Do you have a favorite curse word? Kyra already said it.
I just don't fucking know. I mean, fuck is perfect. And my mother, who interior design paid great tribute to when she passed, with a beautiful on-screen tribute as for her passing of that year, was a very, very proper woman, mother of 6 children, founded Edelman Leather, and was respected in the industry. And she used the word fuck better than anybody on the so it's okay.
And you turned out okay, so it must be all right for a mother. All right, now I want to ask this question to a couple of people and see where we come with it. So with Casey first. You know, you're 20 years in your career, you probably have 20 years more to go, but you're successful. Was there ever an aha moment where you thought, gosh, I made it?
Oh, I wish I had known about this question in advance so I don't have to think about it.
They already thought you would get it in advance. I needed to give you some new ones.
Moving to New York City was actually the aha moment for me. I also grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Michigan, and I grew up on a farm. and could not wait to get out. So moving here and never spent any time here, I really did feel like I made it. And I made this joke to you, but I also thought I was Carrie Bradshaw, and I spent all of my money on shoes. This is 2005. It was like height of Sex in the City. And I was like, I need to make commission. So I quickly moved jobs, sold something else. But I think just being here, and I still feel that way. Like, I live in Brooklyn Heights, and when I jog around the promenade or when I go up to the waterfront, I'm like, damn, I'm so lucky. This is the best city in the world. And to me, that was like the moment where I felt like I made it just by being here, existing here.
That's great. Coleman, same question to you. Was there ever an aha moment where you thought, I've made it?
No, not yet. I'm my own harshest critic, and I think that that's a blessing and a curse, because it means that you're always striving for more and more, but that also means that you're always striving for more and more. But I would say I don't sit back and it's probably a fault of my own, but I don't sit back and sort of reflect on it from that and sort of my achievements or my successes. I tend to be focused on what's ahead. So sorry, that's a bad answer.
No, that's good. I mean, I know there's people in the audience here probably thinking, oh, I'm never quite good enough, or I got to do this or that, and that's just the way that a lot of us were brought up. There's always that next hurdle. There's always that next rung on the ladder, but it is important to take time to recognize that, so I can recommend a therapist for you.
I have too. But it is, I'm sorry to keep talking, but it is, I've been trying to focus a lot more on that and sort of stopping and slowing down and appreciating what I do have in my life, rather than just thinking about what is that next achievement or what is that next sort of measure of success. Because even if you set that, say, when I get this title, or when I get this job with this dream firm, or I get this place to live, or whatever, it very quickly normalizes. And if you're always looking for the next thing, it's not always a great place to be. So I'm working a lot on trying to be more sort of appreciative and sort of taking a breath sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's a curse of our profession that we're always living in the future. When is that being delivered? Is everything in line? What deadline do we have to meet? What's coming next? And then you've missed all the really special nows if you're always living in the future. And now is a good time to say, hey, I'm really in a good place. So Mavis, I'm going to ask you the exact same question. I can't wait to hear what you were going to say. I'm not going to. See, I've already listed all of your accomplishments: 2020, 21, and 20. You didn't get anything in 2023. Was there an aha moment where you thought, I've made it?
I think because nobody else has a mic.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one pinned to me. I can't get away.
Yeah. Some of us have it on it, but the special people have it in their hand.
Okay. I think my aha moment was when I realized that I didn't have to know everything, and that it was okay to tap into your fellow people, coworkers, and trusted people, other people that you might have come in contact with that were in the industry. It was okay to say or to elicit information from them or advice. And I think that that's when my project started to look better, because I wasn't insecure about having to own it 100% by myself. And, I think Ricardo can attest to that, because he and I work, pretty closely together. And there's no ego. It's about, let's do the best thing we can do for our client. And that was a tremendous relief, to get to that place, because it's a lot of pressure when you feel like you got to come up with all these ideas, do all this stuff on your own, even if you have people working under you or whatever. But when you actually say it's okay to get, sit around a table with those people and really hash out together what is the best approach to the design, the success of the design for this particular client. You know, so I think that was a pretty big one for me.
Yeah, and the education process, and when you're young and you're learning about designers, all you learn about is Alexander McQueen is a genius, or
Right.
so-and-so designer is a genius. And you think, I need to be more like that. And then you scratch the surface a little bit and you realize that those people were actually great at making teams.
Right.
And that's why they succeeded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Charles and Ray Eames. If you look at Charlotte Perriand, did a lot for Corbusier in terms of collaboration, but you had the head figure that got all the accolades, and so there was always people behind that were also assisting in that effort.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing, and that should be acknowledged.
Great. Now, do you have a favorite curse word?
I kind of do. And I'm not a cursor. But lately, when I've been driving, there are like these, I feel like, there's these bicyclists, which is great. I have nothing against it. I have nothing against it. I think it's a great thing. And then you have the scooters. And then when you're driving, they're coming all up around you. It's like a thing. And so I find myself saying asshole a lot.
Applause on that one.
I'm just afraid I'm going to hit somebody and it's going to be their fault, but it'll be my fault.
I get it.
All right, let's pivot back around. I like asking this group here some of the same questions so we can see how, how it varies and what the similarity is. So now back to Kyra. I already asked the curse word. The profession that you would attempt other than the one you're in, and why?
I don't actually think that I would. I mean, that is part of why I feel very lucky, is that we have made this up and found success and resonance and constantly, as you said, striving and looking forward. So the forward is always just being better at what we do now and collaborating with more and more interesting partners. I was a drama major in college, and I've told this story many times, but on the first day of drama school, very much like Debbie Allen in Fame, our teacher stood in front of the class and said, if there is anything else you can do and be happy, do it. That's how hard it is to be a professional actor. And I feel that's true of what we're doing here. That's true of being an entrepreneur. And so we're doing this because there is literally nothing else we could do. This is the future we have built, the present and the future that we have built for ourselves. And I think we're so grateful to be a part of this incredible industry.
I wanted to ask a question about the clearly women-led firm that you have. Was that something that happened? It happened just when you counted who was there, or it came from the beginning? And how do you think it affects your business?
It definitely happened organically. Obviously, Rob and I founded this company together, and for the first 15 years or so, it was just the two of us. And then our first several employees were female, and the applicants continued to be female, which I don't think is unusual in the interior design field. As we became manufacturers, I think it is less common for a wide format digital printing company to be led by women. So it happened quite organically. We do have 15% of our team is men. We're a team of about 54 people now. So it's a pretty robust group and still largely female-led. And I think it creates an atmosphere of collaboration and communication. I think there have been moments where people have said to us, oh, there must be so many catfights or disagreements, and it's actually the opposite. There's, I think, an incredible lack of ego among our team, and an authenticity and a desire to collaborate and communicate with each other and with our partners. I like to think that's because we are a group of dynamic individuals, many of whom are female, but we shall see, as we continue to grow. We aren't setting out to only hire women, but it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy to a certain degree because people are also attracted to that culture that we've created. It is unusual, and so I think many of our applicants are drawn to the culture that we've created.
That's perfect. That's great. Omar, so sustainability is a big thing in fashion now. Is that something that you find is moving over into the design world as well? And it seems to be in fashion that people are saying something but not really doing it. And how are we doing in the design world on that?
I mean, my experience at Miller Knoll is the enterprise is doing an amazing job and has done for decades, and is not getting up on a soapbox and yelling it. Like, there's a much more humility about it, and almost not paying the lip service that there's a credible history with Herman Miller in this space of actively being proactively sort of thinking about community and sustainability, as well as the fact that these products are, the core products we sell are innately sustainable. Like, we've coming up to 75 years of the Eames Lounge Ottoman, 75 years of the womb chair last year. So a lot of our top selling products have been in production for just kind of crazy, right? Like over 70 years in their sort of original state. I think I sort of appreciate that this industry is not running into the greenwashing. I am definitely challenging my team and for us to think about how we talk about the things that we're already doing, and are we assessing where we're at? Are we being transparent about where we're at, where we need to go? But I really appreciate that this industry is not, in my experience, is not sort of overly greenwashing. And every day I feel an immense, it's very fulfilling to feel like the products that that my organization sells, that I am part of the team that markets, the products that we develop, we're looking for really long trajectories for these things. And that by nature they need to have a sort of an enduring kind of style as well as quality to them. Right. So that was a huge, I did not feel like that in fashion at all, and it does weigh on you as you get to a certain point in life and with feeling the impact of climate change.
Right, I had not thought of the idea of something having a very long product life in its use, like the chair that you was a classic and you're going to keep forever. It keeps you from buying another chair. Right?
Yeah,
so you get really good value in that.
You give it on to another family member.
John, a similar question to you. You bought Heller, and that had a suite of products. And that some you're developing new. How are you looking at how you reintroduce or tweak things to help the climate?
We make plastic indoor-outdoor furniture during a time of where sustainability is the most important thing. So it was a great company to buy.
Well, there's a lot of plastic to recycle, so you might be a genius.
I'm not a genius. So we did a lot of common sense stuff. First, everything was recyclable, and that's key. So you see people using recycled materials, and then they can't be recycled again, so it ends the cycle, ends up in landfill. So that doesn't work. We started immediately researching using recycled products in the product and making it still recyclable, and that worked. And we're using post-agricultural waste, literally the black strips between the fields across the Midwest to move into the product. Always, I think, people don't speak about it enough, and it's not easy to prove, but longevity is also a great form of sustainability. Yeah. When you make something that goes up in value over time, that's coveted, collected, passed down, heirloom, like you were saying, that adds to sustainability. As of January 1st, we're going to make an announcement. I'm allowed to say?
Uh-oh.
Breaking news.
I won't say it exactly. It's not supposed to be about advertising. You asked me a question. I think as of January 1st, everything we produce will leave the world better than when it arrived. And we'll announce that in January.
All right, I love it. Can't wait to hear about that.
They're all mad at me.
Of 2025 or 2026? January 1st. Did
Five.
you say which?
Five.
Okay,
Five.
okay. That would have been your out.
Fine.
I want to come back to Helene. What gives you energy and what depletes your energy?
Besides coffee, of course. I think a lot of where I get my energy from, well, one is probably, if everyone knows my mentor in this room, so I think she's probably the most high energy person, and I think you can be around her and be recharged. Cindy Allen, our editor-in-chief. Also, it's just the passion for what I do. You know, I was thinking about the question you were asking earlier, and just about, like, you know, what was my aha moment, and I think it was the moment I sort of started working at Interior Design magazine. So this is what you edited out, but I started my career at Sotheby's, and I thought that was going to be my, like, lifetime career, but that's when the, like, collusion with Christie's happened, Martha Stewart went to jail, and then I'm like, maybe this is not the place that I need to be at. And found my way to Interior Design magazine, and I'm like Casey, I did not have a dream job. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was an art history major and knew I was just passionate about art and design, but what was that going to lead to? And upset my mom to know, like, to the upton degree that I couldn't be like, I'm going to be an engineer. So it wasn't until I walked into the magazine and I was like, this is my place. Like, I found what I wanted to be doing, and I love the industry, I love the designers, I love the manufacturers. You know, everything about it really helps me get up every day and do my job and put out a product that I know, I hope, is inspirational for everyone in this room and is a great platform for communication and conversation about what's happening out in the community. So I think for me, that is what drives me, gives me my passion. What depletes me is sometimes being up here, but I was actually, have to be honest, I was happy that I'm not the one doing Dom's job, because I'm usually the one doing it. I'm usually what they call an extrovert, like, what is it, extroverted introvert. So, like, I am totally fine getting up here, talking to you guys, doing it, but now it's going to take me, like, 2 days to get my energy back and, like, hold a conversation.
When we were talking earlier about Sotheby's, you said you were in the rugs and carpets division, and that one thing that struck me was that you saw the respect that designers had for the products that were antique, you know, and the way they loved them and that they moved them into their projects, and it was like one of your first exposures to designers and the things that they loved.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. So I was supposed to be in an externship at Sotheby's, like, the moment I graduated, moved to New York City. It was supposed to start. My first department that I was supposed to rotate was rugs and carpets, and their administrator left, and they're like, we like you, and they hired me, and I ended up being there for 4.5 years. But yeah, there was a lot of respect, and I think it goes back to this idea of, like, heirlooms and long lasting. I think the market for antique carpets doesn't exist as much now as it did 25 years ago. But at the time, it was great, and, you know, it was Jamie Drake or Michael Smith would come in with their clients, and, you know, they were looking and shopping, and it was my first introduction to design and designers, and it was actually partially how I even got my job at Interior Design, because when I walked in and was interviewing with Cindy, you know, she's like, what's your experience? And I'm like, I sold, you know, like, $250,000 carpet to Jamie Drake. So I know designers.
That's a pretty good qualification. Casey, how about the same question? What gives you energy and what depletes your energy?
I'm an extrovert 100%, so this gives me energy. I'm going to talk to all of you tonight. We're going to meet down at the bar, and I'll be the last one here. What depletes me? Missing the train by seconds. Watching my son try and put on his shoes.
He's 21.
He's 4. Yeah, it's probably the little things in life that we can't control. I need to, like, let go of a little bit more. Still working on that. The New York City kind of does that to us, right? Like, tests our patience every day, but I remind myself I chose to be here and I'm really grateful for it. And because the city also gives me life, but I love people, and I think that's the best thing about this industry is meeting new friends, making connections, and also working with people that I love. You know, we had a collaboration earlier with Juniper Design, also a Be Original America's partner, and it's an advertisement. And I love that we can collaborate with people that we really love, and that's kind of, you know, the beautiful thing about this industry is just all of the cross-pollination, the collaboration over years, and just bringing these relationships along with us. Coleman and I are very good friends too. I know.
That's why I sat you next to each other. All right, Mavis, same question. What gives you energy and what depletes your energy?
I think what gives me energy is definitely getting around to, you know, the city. Like a lot of times just walking the city gives me inspiration to apply to some of the designs I'm working on, art galleries, nature, parks, you know, that sort of thing gives me a lot of positive energy because it just feels good. I don't know if anybody saw Maya Lynn's exhibit in Madison Square Park, the ghost trees. I mean, I had an occasion to work with her years ago on a project, and her approach to design and art was so magnificent and thoughtful, you know, and all of those things really inspire me to meet different people doing different things that really could be applied to even, you know, if you interpret it a certain way, it could be applied to corporate interiors or anything if you just want to bring in some fresh thinking, you know, and I think that that's really important. I think I get really disappointed if there are little things that are happening on a project that we've done that the client picks on, you know, and decides that we failed because, you know, the water came out of the faucet a different way or something like that, you know, or you could see the soap dispensers, you know, those things that can be fixed. But I mean, we have to really constantly talk to our teams about making sure you pay attention to the details and that kind of thing, because you want to succeed, you know, you want the client to be happy, really. So.
And making those errors twice, and then you'd see it the second time, and you're like, oh,
right.
That happened again.
Exactly.
That depletes energy.
Yeah, and
I
it's
agree.
bound to happen more than once, so.
Okay, we're kind of coming up to the end. I'm going to ask everyone the same question, but I'm going to start with Mavis, okay? Looking back on your career, what would you tell a young Mavis what to do, and what would you say not to do?
I'd probably say stay out of trouble. No, it would be more about just to do would be keep your eyes open, meet people of all different backgrounds and disciplines, you know, because you learn so much from other people. I remember when I was at Pratt, we went to, before Soho was really Soho, it was, you know, a lot of artists in residence and actors and people like that were taking up those spaces. And my professor, Joe Durso, encouraged us to go meet some of these people. And those are things that have stuck with me my entire career. You know, just being exposed to things that I would never have had the nerve to do when I was younger and at home. But, you know, having someone sort of help set that up for you and taking advantage of it really made a difference in terms of my approach to design. So, I don't know. I think that it's really important to get out there and see things and meet people
And to be clear, the time you're talking about is the 1970s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been the most interesting time to be in New York City.
It definitely was. I was, you know, that was when we were taking sketching classes in Soho, you know, drawing this cast iron buildings. And, you know, I'm actually really happy that there's still a lot of artists in residence that still live in Soho. I was surprised, you know, because I was surprised at how many were still there. Because, you know, you figure everything is about, let's take it over, these creatives have created this really wonderful environment, so we got to come in there and take it over. And it's nice to know that some of those original founders or people that inhabited those spaces are still there. And the Soho still smelled like pepper. Like they were these pepper factories that were in the neighborhood. So when you walked out, you could smell, like if you were at Ken and Bob's Broom Street Bar, you could smell the pepper coming out of the buildings. And and there were a lot of artists that were there on, street level that you could take advantage of. I remember seeing Keith Haring riding his bike down the street, and Basquiat, and it just was good to be out. And as a young person too, you're like a sponge, right? And you just want to be out there and take in as much as you can.
From what I've noticed, the smell in the streets has taken a little bit different aroma.
A little bit, particularly in the summer.
Coleman, same to you. Looking back, what would you tell a young Coleman to do and what not to do in your career?
I'm going to steal from you, but I think the open-mindedness is important because I did not know as a 18, 20-some-year-old that I was going to end up working for a furniture company. I had these loose ideas of what I wanted to do, but throughout my whole career, it's always been sort of seeing what avenues would take me while having this within sort of this loose scope of where I wanted to go. So I ended up at Bernhardt through very circuitous route, one of which was trying to get a lamp developed that an architect buddy from Virginia Tech had designed, and it never seemed to make sense in sort of the moment, but looking back on it, there were stepping stones that got me here. So I would say again, be open-minded to opportunities. Don't sort of, brush away something that may not sound like it's exactly what you want right now, because you never know where it's going to lead.
You appreciate the journey, because if your mind is set on something near, you're going to
more likely not going to get it than get it.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of something not to do, I've gone to business schools my whole life, and so I've dealt with a lot of cocky people, and I just cannot stand cocky people.
Weed them out. That's good advice for everything. Casey, question to you. What would you tell a young Casey to do or not to do for your career?
I believe that my career has really been built on a trajectory that made sense. So I wouldn't really change anything about my career path. I think each role had a very pivotal, a meaningful experience and to get me where I am today. But the one thing I will say, from a very young member on our team currently, I am so proud of their ability to stick up for themselves, and I was not like that. I was a little bit of a pushover. I definitely, was in situations where, because I was the youngest on the team, maybe I took the fall, or I was asked to stay late because I didn't have a family at home, and I really never stood up for myself. I just kind of did whatever was asked of me in early years, and I think that looking at this younger generation, I'm really impressed, because I'm like, wow, they just they ask for what they want, and I kind of wish I'm like, ooh, I need to maybe start doing that now. Taking notes from my Gen Z team members, but I think that was the biggest thing. I just would try and tell younger me that, ask for what you want, ask for the raise, make your case, say no to things every now and then for your mental health. I think that there's a lot of things I would take away from what I'm seeing from the younger generation now.
Awesome. Omar.
That was great. That was a really good one.
You're a young Omar. You can talk to yourself. What do you say? What should you do?
Drink a little less.
Baby, me too.
And seriously, probably would have said that. I think I think it would have just. It sounds so corny, but I do think just enjoying the present. I'm much better at doing that now, and just the joy of the work. I don't really care about title, trajectory. For me, it's such a pleasure that I get to work with kind of the best people in the world at what they do. This guy over here in the front row, Cleaner Atlason, the photographers I work with, my team members, Olivia is out here. But just enjoying the present, I was so focused on what was next, or
Yeah, that
hungover.
future problem of always being in the future and not being in the present.
Yeah. And then I think would have just sort of keep at bay negative people, you know. And I think I'm very good at doing that now, and I think I was probably more accommodating when I was younger.
Great. Helene, so what would you tell a young Helene to do or not to do?
I'm going to steal a little bit from Omar, but only because I was a little bit of an overachiever and I didn't know how to let go. Well, maybe I still don't, but the idea of perfection and doing my best and being the perfect and being number one and some of it's like you don't get to enjoy life because you're just so stuck and focused on the future and wanting, maybe now I'm still stuck on it because I do want to make sure like what our output is perfect. So it'll be a little hard to let go of that now. And then something, of course, that I would tell my past early young self is not to move into that first apartment with that first roommate I had.
Exactly. Kyra, what would you tell a young Kyra to do and not to do in her career?
To do is remain curious and just always be a student. So I think what Mavis was saying of just absorbing art, absorbing architecture, and going outside of your comfort zone and just seeing the world, observing the world, which gets harder and harder as we become absorbed by our phones. And everything is accessible online, whereas when we started our business, the internet barely existed. And so, we had to travel to Manitoba and to Falling Water and all of these incredible places just to even see them. And what not to do, I think, is don't fool yourself into thinking that there will be an aha moment when you've made it. We had several, we have been lucky enough to have several moments where it's like, all right, but nothing changes overnight. It's just all building blocks. It's a very long trajectory that hopefully all of us, it seems like, been at this for 20-something years. And I think just trust the process and don't think it's going to change overnight.
Good advice. John, we're out of time. Please, if you can imagine back to a young John.
With hair? Like Casey said, I'm happy, with the trajectory. And I feel it went the way I couldn't have ever dreamed that it would go. But I would say early on, I tell myself that I could do whatever I wanted, right? To just understand those people next to you aren't any smarter or dumber or working that much harder. You can compensate for your weaknesses in many different ways and achieve a lot more once you kind of just understand who you are a little bit, what you need to work harder on. I do believe in, when you get older saying no, but when you're younger saying yes to everything. And that I didn't understand that I had an ability to do well in the learning world. Like, I was a horrible student. I failed French 1 3 times. I can speak 5 languages now. And it all came from the real world. So I think I told myself, like, don't worry about the shitty grades. It'll all be fine later.
Amazing. Let's thank our roundtable. And we are going to open it to some questions, but we have to use the mics. Karen's going to come and take the mic. So somebody, the other Karen, 2 Karens. Does anyone have a question here? Yeah, right here in the front.
For me to get the benefit of those watching around. I guess maybe a bit of a personal question, but how were any of you able to balance family and your personal life with your extreme career achievements?
I'll answer. I have a fantastic partner, and it's not without that. And I'm really, fortunate that we are sometimes ships passing in the night. Like, this is my week. He traveled last week. I've got evenings this week. It's just a balancing act, but I think it's having a really great network, whether that is your partner or somebody close in your life. But personally, I couldn't do anything in my career without my other half.
I would echo that too. And in my case, my wife had chosen to stay at home with our children, and that's an incredible sacrifice on her part. She loves it, but there are a lot of things that she's taken, she's taken a back seat on because of my career, and part of it is, a practical thing. But I would say that, and then also, you've just got to put a line in the sand sometimes and say, I can't go on that business trip because I have my daughter's ballet recital, and it may seem like it's catastrophic at the moment, but nobody's going to remember whether or not you were on that trip 2 years from now. But you will remember
2 months, probably.
2 months, yeah, but you will remember that recital, hopefully.
Anyone else want to try to answer as we get our next
I'd
question?
say something I've really embraced and let go of guilt on is the fact that I am a workaholic, and I was sort of had shameful feelings about that when I was younger, and would hide that I would stay late. I really love my job. I love working. I've need to spend lots of hours in the space, especially the creative times, the sort of nights and weekends, and I think because I get joy and energy from that, I just sort of don't have guilt about being that committed to it. And a lot of what I do for recreation is really recharging myself creatively. My fiance is also a workaholic, that helps. But I think it's all right. Like that's how I just, I used to feel bad about it. Now I'm like, it's okay.
That's that one thing.
Yeah.
I'll just add that's amazing because I've been guilty for 23 years. Like, I've always been guilty. I haven't put enough time into the work, and I'm always guilty. I haven't put enough time into the family. Now the kids are out of the house. It's very easy, but I must say for 22 years, I felt there was no way to really do it properly on both sides.
Right.
Because you're gonna go to the proper thing at the elementary school, but you're gonna miss something else. And you're gonna make that meeting that you didn't need to go to, but then you're gonna miss another one of those. Like there's always gonna be a give and take. You asked a question, it's really, really, really hard. No, it is. I'm just telling you right now, it's really, really hard. If you wanna be the best parent in the world, or the best executive, something's gonna give a little bit.
I totally agree. It's interesting to hear you say that as a man, because I do think that there's this mom guilt, professional mom guilt, that it is usually, that's the hat that it's personified that way, but it's interesting to hear you have the same feelings. And I just think that as an entrepreneur, and both of us are running the same business together, so our kids just inevitably have to hear about it all the time, and we aren't as present, and I think that constant guilt if I'm not giving enough to work and I'm not giving enough to the kids, but it engenders very resilient children, and we'll be paying for therapy for many years.
I will add, at the risk of sounding vulgar, I'm not going to give my curse word, but there is, there are mouths to be fed as well. So
Yes.
you have to take into account that, yes, you might not be able to make it to everything for them, but you're able to provide them with a life that you want to give them and that they're hopefully appreciative of, and that's part of the equation as well.
And hopefully they will recognize the passion and the hard work and might be inspired to put that same kind of energy into something someday.
Or you could just be a childless cat lady.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
And some days we wish we were.
I saw another couple hands just out of the corner of my eye.
Is this on? Okay. Hi, I have a two-part question. Part one, Tom, what is your favorite curse word?
Wait, ask the second part.
The second part, what are some spaces or locations in New York that you go to find inspiration?
Okay, my curse word is good Lord. Like that's like it kind of works whether you're cursing or praying or whatever. And you're not supposed to take the name of the Lord in vain, and if it's one of the commandments, I'm going to break it. And I forgot part two already.
That was the most important part.
Where in New York City
Yeah,
is?
are there places or locations where you find inspiration in New York?
That's not to me directly.
It's Saturday.
For me, it's the Guggenheim Museum. I walk in there, and the brilliance of that place just unlocks in front of your eyes. It's so complicated. It's so simple at the same time. The guy was willing to go to the ultimate ends to make this happen. And then when something kind of didn't work, he just broke his own rule and said, okay, I'll just put that elevator there. I guess it'll work out, and you'll get out on one side and this side and that side and the other side. Some things just don't make sense. And I think that's a good thing to remember, is that like you're gonna get it figured out, and you're gonna make sure you got the magic of it, but don't over figure it out so that you've ruined the magic, is what I take from every time I walk in there. No one else?
Nobody?
Special place?
TGA Fridays.
I can answer. 'Cause
Times Square?
I didn't have kids, so I couldn't answer the other question. I don't have cats either. I'm also animal free.
The liberated life.
I know.
Jealous.
But no, for me, it was interesting because it was a place that I discovered during the pandemic, which is out the window of my living room. And I live on the Lower East Side, on FDR Drive, right on the East River. And I got stuck because my partner has our second bedroom, it's always been his office because he actually distributes bourbon. But I got stuck at the dining room table, and I realized I started looking out the window, and we're just high enough where all I see is the river and the Williamsburg Bridge, and then Williamsburg, which is very funny because I've seen everything. I've seen the refinery go up, the Annabelle Seldorf. I was like, Williamsburg has changed, but I started counting the tugboats as they went up and down the East River, and it's kind of mesmerizing a little bit, I have to say. But it's also, we all talk about like mental health and wellness and like taking your eyes off your computer. And actually for me, those moments of just like looking away, looking out my window is kind of refreshing for me. And so like, just in general, being in New York City is always inspiring for me, and I just love urbanity in general. But like something as simple as looking out my window and just like, once again, counting how many tugboats have gone up and down all day long.
That is a very
great.
introverted answer. Anyone else want to try? We get one more question.
I would say, in terms of the spaces, I mean, we're spoiled for choice in New York, right? There are so many incredible spots, buildings. For me, it sort of used to be the combination of going to, what was the Met Breuer, what was the Whitney and the Breuer, seeing a great show there, getting a bite to eat downstairs, and then going to the Bemelman's Bar and the Carlisle. And that combination of those two very different buildings, a block and a half apart from each other, and experiences, felt like such an incredible New York experience. And both deeply woven into someone who loves design, aesthetics, and experiencing architecture. So those, and both with a history to them.
Right, it's not about I'm in love with an aesthetic. I'm in love with a place. I'm in love with what a place makes me feel.
Yeah.
And those can be two different things aesthetically.
Yeah.
It's really a quintessential New York, going back to those places that, is it the Sherry
Yeah, give it.
past
We're gonna get some secret
mural.
70 spots here. I feel like
King Cole?
The King Cole Bar.
Oh, at the St. Regis?
The St. Regis. Going there, and this is while I was a young, just starting out in business. For some reason, we had money to buy drinks in these places. I don't even know how.
the drinks were $2.
Or less.
But to go to the Seagram building and sit there and just take it all in, and I was telling someone the Ford Foundation and walking through
Paley
those
Park.
buildings, Paley Park, we talked about that. Where you can have a hot dog for just a couple bucks because you weren't making any money at the time, but sit in this wonderful area with a waterfall and just all these iconic spots that you would find. And I'm not sure if this is true. I'm not sure that the younger people are getting out enough to take advantage of these things about the history of New York and you know, the history of design in New York and these
Yeah.
beautiful, iconic places. So,
Get out and experience it if you're young. All right, we're going to bring this to a close. Before we do, I want to welcome everybody for refreshments. And then there's also a great exhibit called The Persistence of Hand Drawing that's just around the corner here. It was curated by Thomas Mellons and Donald Albrecht. Donald Albrecht is just one of the most charming people and brilliant with exhibits, and this is a great one. So if you enjoy hand drawing, that'll be for you. I'd like to thank our whole round table and thank the audience.
Thank you.
As you were.